Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us on this episode of the Pave It Forward podcast. My name is Phil Metzger, and with me is Kevin Gray, and we are here to help leaders in the paving industry who are looking to run more efficiently, meet their ideal customer, and improve the lives of those around them through meaningful work. Kevin, how are you today, my man?
I'm good, man. Busy, which is great. This time of year, it's November the 13th, and man, we're it's humming right along like we're in the middle of summer, man. It's the phone has just exploded the last 30 days or so, and it's luckily we've got had an extension of nice weather here, and I think people are still have some projects they're thinking about, or maybe they've waited too long and they're realizing, oh, it's about to be turning cold, and so there's some urgency. So we're just trying to navigate what makes sense for us as a business and keep the pedal to the floor, man. So
Yeah, it got me thinking because of this, I'm not going to say influx because we kind of talked about how SEO is probably contributing to the amount of customers that you're having within the last month or two. But when you kind of talk about, I would have thought the leads would have almost cut off completely just due to the weather, regardless of SEO. So
yeah,
my question is, do you think these customers are trying to get in before the cold, or do you think they even are thinking about the cold? Like, are they even educated enough to know that time is running out?
I don't know. I mean, I think some of them are for sure. We've got a couple that have some time frame and we've have had cognizant communication and dialogue and conversations with folks that were kind of already privy to the weather constraints in our industry. I mean, Google and YouTube nowadays, I mean, you can go on there and I mean, you can figure out how to treat brain cancer if you want to. I mean, so people are figuring out, when can we pave, when can we seal, when can we not, when is it ideal? Can it be wet? Can it be cold? I mean, we had a guy we paved his driveway for last week, and he was challenging me on some things that was making me dive deep into my database of wisdom and things I've learned over the years, just the questions he was asking, and just really having to have an educational conversation because he was very well prepared and educated. Now, I'm not saying all of just like when people go on there and try to diagnose their illnesses on Google and YouTube and WebMD and all that stuff, I'm not saying it's always completely accurate, just as much as all the things you can see and read and hear and watch out there on the internet about asphalt paving and pavement maintenance is
Sure,
also is
sure.
accurate. But
Yeah, it turns out your pavement has cancer.
that's right. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, turns out your pavement is terminal. Yeah. So, but so yeah, I mean, I think people are more educated today than they have been ever. At least they certainly have an opportunity to be. So it's interesting, and I tell you, I can still see because of where because we do source where all of our leads come from. SEO is working, obviously, and then uh, you know we've completed. I was just looking at it before we logged on. I don't know, we're 120, 125 jobs we've completed so far this year. So we've been at 125 different job sites
Yeah.
in many places outside even of Jefferson County where we operate. So we've been kind of out in the state and out in some of the outstretched areas outside of Jefferson County, and people are starting. They're seeing us. They've seen us around. They've had a neighbor talk to them about us or whatever. So we're getting some of those leads coming in. The two nice contracts we sold last week were out in Bedford, Kentucky, which is up past LaGrange, Sligo, kind of northern Oldham County out there. So it's 40-45 minutes from here. And that was a word of mouth kind of deal. And we've landed two really nice projects that we're going to try and get to next week. So this time of year becomes, and we've talked about it in a previous episode, it's navigating urgency based on what scopes of work we can go be good at this time of year, taking weather into account, taking temperatures, taking cloud cover, taking wind, taking precipitation into account and just making sure we can deliver on our promises to our consumers in the best way possible. And you know, there's some folks I've already had to have some discussions with saying, you know, your scope of work may or may not fit in this time frame for the rest of this season. Maybe something we need to look at for spring, just depending on what the weather kind of allows us to do. So, lot of navigating logistics, navigating scopes, navigating consumers that are maybe kind of barking the loudest or more urgent than others. Some are very willing to wait until spring if that's the right thing to do, you know, to
Yeah,
deliver the best product for them. So uh,
man,
we're,
it's really interesting.
we're busy. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, absolute correction that it's the brand in general that's getting out there.
Yeah.
And by brand, it means SEO, it means yard signs, it means the way you conduct and hold yourself, it means what you're talking about when you're being honest with customers about the wind, the precipitation, even the fact that you care about the wind, precipitation, temperature, anything like that, because a lot of companies out there would just try to get as much down on the ground to make as much money as they can before the season
Collect a
ends.
check. Yep.
Yeah, and so that's awesome. I think when you even talk about it at a smaller scale, and even if you know you are just a larger company or a bigger company, that brings value and that brand through your actions as well is really kind of resonating. But as far as today's episode, I was we were reflecting with AI, as we just kind of will probably bring that up in the near future. But we took the answers or the transcript from last week's episode, and I had basically a dialogue with an AI that I like called Claude, and it helped us kind of brainstorm for some follow-up questions that we could get into, really some parts that we could dive in a little bit deeper. And I like some of the suggestions. And what they kind of came up with was some immediate planning and operations needs, which is kind of how you attack your weekly routine. And by weekly routine, obviously, it's anything but routine because you're on you're in an industry where it may be at every 3 to 5 days that you truly get to sit down and look at what's happening within your business. So I thought that was an interesting way to kind of go. And then maybe leaning into a bit of the sales side, if we can get to that this episode as well. Just after you kind of do that weekly planning, you have leads in there. What happens next? But just as far as kind of kicking all this off, we'll put in air quotes your Monday. But let's say you haven't been able to really sit down and look at your systems that are running as far as an office standpoint. So it's your first morning that you get to do that. What is kind of going through your brain when you first sit down, as far as whether it be mentally preparing or actually just kind of the order of operations that you typically kind of diagnose your needs with?
Yeah, I mean, you know, for me, and luckily, you know, the software we're using, the CRM we're using, that platform has got a really nice mobile friendly side to it as well. So I'm able to do. I feel like I'm. You say Monday, but every day could almost be a Monday because
Sure.
it's kind of an ongoing, evolving thing. It's not. Um, and again, and it could be because we're in the earlier stages of building and growing a business again, that we don't have dedicated staff that's in charge of production scheduling, and we don't have uh, a centralized team that's either in the office or a combination of office and field that one of their primary, you know, job descriptives is to be focusing on scheduling out our production. So that's something that I'm doing most. And it's funny. I can tell I'm starting a business again because it's usually what I wake up in the morning thinking about, and it's usually what I'm going to bed thinking about. And for me, to get back to your question, uh, when I think about routine and planning and getting things ready for the week, for me, it all starts with logistics, productivity, efficiency. You know, what jobs work well together, what parts of town are they in, what plant are we going to be nearest to, how can we group, and it's good, the CRM we use, I mean, it's got everything spelled out for us that we've got under contract, so I can quickly look at the kind of jobs we have, the scope of work we have. It's got a dollar amount beside it, so I, have a pretty good idea of the time frame that these things, each job, they're going to take based on that. And so I just kind of start. It kind of probably looks a lot like the movie A Beautiful Mind when he's got the chalkboard visions and all that going on with the formulas and equations
Sure.
and solving the problems. But that's how my jobs look to me, and it's factoring in again trucking, plants, how long it takes to mobilize out there, what the manpower, and just starting to put the pieces of the puzzle together that makes sense because I operated for many years early on without really understanding the importance of making all that stuff make sense together so we could be as efficient as possible and deliver the best consumer experience as possible in the same breath. It's we've got plenty of work and we could go out and work every single day, but it doesn't make sense if I can, maybe whittle it down to 2, 3, 4 days a week and let's say, hey, maybe we're not going to work a day or two this week because it doesn't make sense just to go out and work just to be going out to work. So it's a lot of, again, going back to planning and really just getting things lined up in a fashion that makes sense for us as a business so we can be as profitable as possible. And right now, especially in the early stages, and even as you get along in business, I mean, profitability is all about being able to make your company better and the people that work for you better and to be able to provide equipment, assets, resources, education, all the things that take marketing, brand aware, all the things that it takes to run, grow, and build a successful long-term company. So I'm factoring all that stuff in to how we plan our weeks really, and it's a day in and day out process sometimes. I try to do it at least a week in advance, if not more, just so I don't have to consume so much of my time in the minutia of it. If we can get a good plan put together and lock it in, and we know the weather's going to be solid, we'll do that. But you get into this time of year when weather's a factor too, it's kind of an ongoing, ever changing kind of thing. And I was listening to my buddy Kyle Lashone talking on his story today, or he put up a post about. I was like, you can have the greatest plan in the world, and look, we try to have the greatest plans and communication in the world, but things inevitably change. There's always variables. Uh, Things go wrong. Just stuff happens in the construction industry that sometimes is as many years as I've been planning these kind of days and weeks. Stuff still happens. So there's always got to be some wiggle room for that too. And how do you react when those things happen? How do you stay centered and focused and calm, cool, and collected and still be able to execute? So it's quite the puzzle, but
Yeah, I've got quite a few
there's a
thoughts.
method to the madness, I guess, and maybe the madness only exists uh, in the system that I've created. But there is a method.
Well, there has to be a point to get from A to B before you get to,
Yeah, for
wherever
sure.
like hiring people to do the job is. A couple points. You use Leap, which used to be Job Progress.
Yep.
And I definitely don't mind plugging them because as I've learned, I had no clue how often you were using your cell phone. I honestly thought, I guess until about a month ago, and we've been together now 7, 8 months now, that you were doing a majority of this work from your computer. And I
Yep.
didn't look at the timestamps of you doing things or anything. I just saw that things were getting done. So first of all, that's impressive to me as someone who really has a mental block on trying new things from your cell phone as far as like organizational data input, that kind of stuff. I'd rather just be at my computer. Second was Kyle Ashion. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
What's his company and handle? I definitely want to give him a shout because
He's Integrity Asphalt
gotcha.
out of Michigan. Yep.
Nice. Give him a look.
Yeah,
And
man.
then
I think he may be coming down next week. His season's wrapping up, and he reached out and said, "Hey, can I come down and pay with you guys for a few days?" And I said, "Come on, man." So,
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah.
that's
So you
great,
may
man.
be seeing him here in the next week or two.
Yeah, that's great. So keep an eye on the stories, and yeah, it's really neat to see contractors of all different kinds bring in other contractors that they respect and just can talk shop with for a couple jobs. That's some of
Love
the
it.
best learning experience.
Yeah.
You had mentioned that in the beginning when you were talking about your systems that or your planning that you don't have these external arms yet for scheduling, for finance, for all these different hats that you have to wear. But
Yep.
you could argue that what you're deciding to prioritize are going to be the things that you can probably end up handing off. And so even at the smaller level, when you prioritize as a business owner, as you grow, you're still going to need to kind of think about those core things. So
Absolutely.
even though it's all kind of like a mind circuitry of experience that you're kind of counting on to make the connections and see the picture, I also thought when you sit down for these things, what are the fires that like when this type of thing pops up, like that is top priority and we have to do it. Are there situations where a job's lacking or customer service, employee related stuff? Like, is there anything you that happens fairly often or over your kind of years of experience that you just have to deal with it, even if that's not the thing you want to be doing or planning for?
It typically comes down to the consumer, man. It's like uh, if they've got a legitimate need or concern or question um, or they need timely communication with consumers is probably my biggest thing. I
Hmm.
mean, it really is. I mean, it's almost like I'll uh, drop anything I'm doing to make it. I've got a couple. I've got when we wrap up here, I've got some bids to get out and some leads to address, and I know that they're at that. We try to we have this thing, and it's just something I developed over my career. Like we need to get we need to be responsive with people immediately. So as soon as they touch us, if they don't reach us by phone immediately, we need to get back to them ASAP, and then we need to start handling their account within 24 to 48-hour period, or they're going to find someone else to do business with. And I think we sell a lot of work on the front end because we just take it so seriously that we're going to be responsive and we're going to answer the phone. And these things may sound simple, but it's calling people back, responding to just being responsive to when a consumer is trying to engage and interact with you gets you so many points up front that I think a lot of folks miss out on. And I usually will default to that as kind of the most important, whether we've got a signed contract with these folks or not, because I know they're a potential consumer who could potentially be word of mouth to another consumer and on and on and on. So it all to me goes back to customer experience or probably you're going to say what are my biggest priorities? It's usually, making sure we've got those bases covered first. And look, I mean, we talked a little bit a minute ago about kind of the method to the madness that I have created and I operate within in my own head. As this business grows, and as any business grows, it doesn't do any of the other employees, team members, managers, leaders within the business any good if I'm the one, holding all of that information in my head. I've got to eventually uh, disseminate what I'm thinking or doing, or what my processes are, or what the standards are, or what the procedures should be onto paper, out into the world, into an operating procedure for the team so that they can start begin using and implementing that system as well. Because if I'm the one that's the end all be all, if you will, because I'm the one that has all the information because I've built the system within my own head, that's not going to do anybody any good long term. They're never going to grow. They're never going to flourish. We're never going to get any real standard operating procedures in place if I don't share that information, teach people how to do it, let it evolve on it. Let them bring their own ideas into it. there's a lot of people that can do it a lot better than I'm doing it probably if we can allow them to have some input, be a part of the team and start helping develop some of that stuff. So as this thing grows, it's going to be vital that we bring the people along and they start, you know, wearing some of the hats. And I think that's where a lot of small business owners get bogged down is in the early days, in the early years, you know, you are the one wearing so many hats, and it's so hard to let go of that control. And it's, you know, as the company grows, you've really got to start empowering the people that you're bringing into the company or you're developing within the company to start wearing some of those hats for you so you can continue to be the visionary and the leader and the one kind of driving the ship forward. So it's
What is one of the positions that you are thinking might be the first title increase as far as whether it be with from within or from without, whether it be in the field or office? Like, what is the first person or position or two that you're,
I think it's going to be sales, man. I think
yeah,
it's going to be, yeah, I think it's going to be, um, I
yeah,
think it's going to be in the sales department. I really do. We've already got a pretty good, lock on the field operations side if we need that, internally. Probably sales and then, office administration, you know, shortly thereafter that. So, and look, and the reason I say that is because with sales, you can start doing anything you want. I mean,
yeah,
it's getting to a point where I can't wear all the hats, and that's a good thing. That's I
yeah.
mean, if
Just
you're
stressing the
starting a
system.
business and a business
Yeah.
is growing, and you start saying, "Holy shit, I'm getting underwater and I'm wearing too many hats, and I don't there's not enough hours in the day," that's usually an indicator that you need to start hiring some folks to help you take care of those tasks and start building a team around you. So that's a good thing, and I think I think for us and for me, I mean it's on the sales side because sales sure can fix a lot of problems, and sales sure can afford you the opportunity to do some things in business that you can't otherwise do. And if I can't be the bottleneck, I can't bottleneck this company. I've got to let things go, and I've got to let the thing organically start building its legs up underneath of it. So that's
Yeah.
just something I'm becoming more and more mindful of every day, because I've done it both. I've been a bottleneck, and then I've had times in my career where I've allowed the people around me to really be rock stars and kick ass and do their jobs and do them very well, and that's a whole lot more fun, and I can be a lot better at doing the things that I'm really good at as far as whether that be planning or visionary, you know, just kind of building the dream and pitching where we're going and you know keeping the ship going forward in that direction. So
Being the leader.
and being the yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. I can't be a good leader if I'm caught too much in the minutia. Does that make
sure.
sense?
Sure. Yeah, I actually it's been I can't tell you how many times it's been recommended that I read the book Good to Great. And
Yeah,
just a quick synopsis, and I'm only about a third of the way through it. But it's basically defining on a five scale level, level 1 to 5, kind of defining what leadership is and the qualities that really stood out in a study of 1,000+ companies of leaders who took a company and took it to extraordinarily great standards by a very strict set of criteria. And it talks about getting everyone in the boat first, and then the people you
yeah,
want in the boat. And then once you
that's
have the
it.
people rowing, getting them rowing in the right direction, and then kind of looking for land. And I thought about that through our relationship as you know, you just brought me on as a video guy for additional brand exposure. I mean, that was pretty much it. And it's been incredible because as you know, over the last 8 years, some of the people who are with you in that crew that you have today of 5 were there at the beginning, and just some of these people you've picked up along the way and really made good relationships with. And you know, obviously there's a time where making that hire is of course you have to consider it a return on investment, and you have to
Sure.
um, you have to make sure it makes sense. But just like a piece of equipment, there has to be on a return on investment there. Now, you said with sales, that will be your first hire. I wanted to get that since this is a very practical situation. What are you going to look at this off season, or are you have you already looked at it and made up your mind as far as how does that work leading into next year? Is there a timing element as far as just time of the year when paving gets started, or a revenue level, or what are you going to look at to just kind of decipher what the future of that salesperson might look like?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely metrics that need to be analyzed and reviewed, and data and trends and projections. And look, I mean, you can look at all that stuff all day long till you're blue in the face, and you can make pretty wise, decisions based on all the data you got. But sometimes in business, you got to have a little bit of leap of faith mentality about you too. Like you just kind of got to trust it in your gut or try it, and just see what happens, and just believe that belief is such a powerful tool when you're an entrepreneur or business owner or trying to do something. And just believing, you can't just have belief like, oh, I'm going to hire a salesperson and we're going to double revenue because I believe it and I hope it and I pray that it happens. But it's
Yeah.
if you can see certain points in your data and your projections and your trends that it's leaning historically towards the point where we need someone to help us manage this, or someone that can help. And here's the bonus is if you can find someone that can help, manage what you've got, but then hire the right person and find someone that's going to bring in additional on top of all the other things that you're already doing, that might bring in new relationships, or that might get involved, be able to get involved with some networking circles or events. I mean, there's plenty of things that someone who is completely dedicated round the clock to sales and sales only and networking and branding and marketing, that can be out in your community, doing that solely for your company. I mean, there can be a huge return on that investment. It's something that I as someone that's trying to do, wear a bunch of hats, I don't have the physical time to make all of those things happen. It's impossible. So that's why you got to start bringing the pieces in, and becoming the coach, the leader, the teacher. I mean, I think about it, all these great sports teams. The leader, the coach. I mean, he's on the bench. I mean, he's pulling strings from the sidelines. He's not, and I'm not saying the leader isn't involved with the business, but like you got the players out there running the play. So
Yeah.
you call the plays, you predict how the game's going to go or the strategy you need to use to get the W. But it's you can't be the one dribbling the ball down the court, getting the rebound, shooting the threes, making the free throw. You're like, you gotta have a team full of folks to do all of those things, and it's finding all the right pieces and getting them all in synchronicity with each other that can create some greatness. So
Yeah, I think it's interesting your evolution because I imagine maybe 4 to 6 months ago I asked you, I'm not even sure on an episode, if you had to hire someone or if you had to give an answer, which would you hire first? Someone to come in and take a leadership position on the crew so you could do sales, or sales so you could be with the crew. And through hearing you talk and just yeah, understanding and time together, it kind of sounds like you can be sure that the quality assurance measure is there in your product, and let someone who is charismatic, who does have the right values, go and represent your company. And I think that's a pretty good way to handle it because you also have that ability of sales. Um,
yeah,
Obviously the ability to represent your company in the way you want to. So I think that's interesting that you can do that. And also, as you were answering, I think the only criteria to uh, go ahead and take that leap of faith on a first salesperson is leads. You have to know through, we have our first year of historical data, which of course is going to be skewed because no one knew us at the beginning of last year. But like we have that compared to market history data, whether it be your former company and experience knowing what happens throughout the years, or individual studies that are out there on what happens in the market in general throughout the United States. But then you kind of can combine all that and make a judgment based on your specific case, you know? And so I think that's going to be, you know, again, a rather enjoyable part of this off season is just looking into those little things that can make you feel a little bit more confident. Because as you said, from there on out, if you have the work, you have the work to do. You can generate revenue, you know, especially if you're on the other side of things, making sure that that quality piece is there, and, you know, obviously helping out wherever else. So yeah, anything to kind of add to that as far as, oh, and one more thing. You had talked about the salesperson kind of going out and being an advocate as far as making business relationships and community connections. I know at least one of the people that are on your crew right now was met by you or your brother-in-law at a Wendy's drive-through 7 years ago now.
Yeah.
He's one of the trusted people who you not only trusted as far as a member of your crew, but you're giving leadership opportunities to, and you know he's a solid individual. So anything on all that you just want to kind of comment on there?
Man, I don't know. It's kind of well. One thing I can comment on, I mean, and this, you know, a lot of this can be overwhelming, and people that are listening be like, well, how do you know when it's time to hire a salesperson? What data are you looking at? What trends are you? What projections are you talking about? What do you mean your financials need to start looking like this in order to start making some of those decisions? I mean, if those are some of the things that are going through your mind, my suggestion would be to reach out to a mentor, reach out to someone that has been doing this for a while, and just ask those questions. Because, you know, I was fortunate enough when I first, maybe not when I first started doing this, but after I got a year or two into it, I had two or three, you know, really good mentors that I could call anytime and ask these questions, you know, and I may have thought they were even dumb questions, but if you find a good mentor, someone that's genuinely willing and wants to help you, there are no dumb questions, and they're going to help you process this stuff and get to an answer and talk you through it and work towards your answer. Um, I was walking around. We were down at our local cat, Boyd Cat here in Louisville, is having a yellow tag sales event the next 2 days, and they're selling a bunch of pieces off of their rental fleet. They got skid steers down there and rollers and excavators, backhoes. I mean, you name it, anything that Caterpillar dealer has got on their rental fleet, they are parting ways at really good prices for some of this um, lightly used equipment. And we were down there looking at some of that stuff today. And as um, I was talking with my field operations guy, and we were down there looking at the stuff, and it was like, you know, would it be nice to have another skid steer? And, you know, there's stuff down there we could buy, but it's like, we have the things we need right now to be who we are and operate the way we need to operate. I said there's going to come a point in time when we can look at our data or we can look at our finances and say we have enough work on the horizon that it actually justifies us spending any amount of money to own another skid steer. Would it be nice to own another skid steer? Yeah, it would be nice. But right now it doesn't make any sense. We're not going to gain any more. We're not going to be able to go out and do any more work because we own a second skid steer right now. Next year and over the winter, if we start to see that the leads are doubling and if the contracts are doubling and the sales volume's going to double, and oh shoot, now we need a prep crew and a paving crew. Yeah, probably going to make sense to go buy that other skid steer so we can produce the amount of work that's coming through the door as signed contracts. But um, those are some of the things I'm kind of thinking about. Is just knowing well enough when those points are as you progress, when it's time to start, you know, whether it be hiring more crew guys, hiring a sales guy, hiring an office person, buying XYZ piece of equipment. to help your production or your efficiencies. And sometimes it's just an efficiency boost. It's not really, we don't need a production boost, but man, if we could, trim a few hours a week off of, you know, payroll because this piece of equipment allows us to do that, and we can do an extra job or whatever, it's starting to figure out some of those things and start plugging them into the operations. And those only come with experience. They come with data. They come with, being in it and being a part of the thing evolving and making those decisions, at the right time, or at least at the right time as far as you can tell, based on the data you have and the projections you have.
Sure. And I want to talk about how data is not scary for a second, because
Yeah.
as I mentioned, I started with you as a creative entity, and the search since since I guess about a year and a half in of starting a video production business was great. It looks great. Find the return on investment for the company. And that, I think, with profit and loss and return on investment, if you just try to start with those two, learning what those two are, I think it would be a tremendous start. But what I learned through this whole thing, I didn't go to marketing school. Like my learning style was not able to digest large pieces of information. So I had to scratch and claw through videos, through podcasts, and through internet research, what all this means, mainly because I got pissed off that marketing companies would just throw any number at you and, of course, scare the hell out of business owners. Really pissed me off. So to be able to come from an angle now, 8 years in, of just trying to figure out the data that matters for businesses, plain and simple.
Yeah.
To just start documenting those numbers, whether you get into Google Sheets is free, and you can just put, gas used this week, X amount, just go down line by line and start tracking those things. I'm telling you, data is not scary. It's just a series of making sure that you have a way of documenting some data that you think might be important, sticking to that routine, and then looking at it. And even from then, you might not even keep 80% of the data that you tracked, but the 20% you do keep, you do a little bit more testing on that, keep that going, and see what trends you can find there. So even though we're talking, and it's the exact same way I felt when I got in the room with true marketers and when I was learning education that was above my head, it really is just about trying to execute a few simple things and building from there. So as you talk about these mentorships and give all this great advice, when it comes down to making those decisions, you can't do it well, or at least feel comfortable about it and know that you're taking a leap of faith founded in something that is to the core of what business is, which is financial profitability and the ability to do it again tomorrow. I think you'll find that, yes, start there, ask your mentors, ask us, reach out, let us know in the comments. Oh, like and subscribe if you're liking this, by the way, but let us know in the comments. DM us, whatever it needs to be done to get that conversation going. Because a mentor is someone where there is no stupid questions. They're going to understand that you're coming from a place of learning if it's genuine, and they will help you kind of set that up. And just kind of looking back through this whole evaluation of when to make decisions and gut decision and valuing employee input, I think those three things right there are pretty good. And so kind of in thinking about that, I have a follow-up question. Did you buy any equipment? You said you decided to say no on the equipment. You're going to do that. I guess I should rephrase it this way. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and cut there and figure out where I was going. Do you have, Kevin, what do you think about that?
Well, we didn't buy any new equipment.
Yeah.
And we had, the conversation went something like this. It was like, there will come a point in the near future where it's undeniable that we can, it's almost like when it comes down to return on investment, and when you get to, if you've got enough data and you've done enough research and you know your market and you know your trends and you know your projections, it gets down to it's undeniable
Mm,
um, that implementing a new piece of equipment or a process or an asset or uh, a new crew or crew member, it's undeniable the return on investment that that piece is going to gain you. It's like we're going to know at some point we've got so much work that it's going to cost us if we don't make this purchase. It's going to set us back if we don't make this hire. It's going to cost us $2 million next year if we don't hire a salesperson. Like, what's the cost of not doing, like not, and it's hard because a lot of the times you look at the upfront expensive things, but if you've got enough information and data to say, I know what the return on investment is going to be if we do make this purchase, then you should have your answer. And I'll tell you this, you said, talking about data being scary, the scariest data, in my opinion, is the data that you don't have. Like,
yep.
that's when it's scary. You
Yeah.
talk about there's enough stress and worry and anxiety and just thought that goes on with owning and operating a business. You can multiply that by at least 10 if you don't have good data to help you sift and navigate those thoughts and worries and fears and anxieties and decisions. Like, because at that point everything's just based on gut. I think we should buy a skid steer. I think we should hire a salesperson. um, Maybe if we hire a salesperson, hopefully we can get another $1 million in revenue. Like, you got to take those words, hope and maybe and might, kind of out of the equation and insert that with actual data that say, then you can say, if we hire a salesperson, we will increase revenue by X. If we buy this piece of equipment, we will increase productivity, efficiency, and customer satisfaction by X. Or, you should be able to back it up with some tangible um, numbers, data, research, whatever, to say, yes, this is a good business decision.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And I went to, and leading or coming off of that, as far as hiring a salesperson, I was curious as to what your expectations are when you hire a salesperson. What you tell them are the things that you're going to be looking at, maybe a percentage rather than a number or something like that. But as far as when you're evaluating, we'll just say you have a few candidates in mind, you've got it down to two or three, and you're like, okay, you probably might be a good fit, or there's a good chance you might be a good fit, but these are the expectations. Do any of these bother you? When you think of that conversation, what are the items on that list that kind of come to mind?
well, I mean, first and foremost, they gotta fit the culture and believe in, um, or at least sound like, or start proving that they believe in our core values, our mission, our vision, where we're going, who we are, what we stand for. Do we match on a moral level? Do we match as human beings? Can you become a part of our ecosystem, basically, if you will? And then if you're talking about sales, I mean, I don't and this is going to sound greedy, but it's not. It's if you're in sales, you better be motivated by money. Like,
Mm,
that's just got to be your primary, um, money and customer satisfaction. Like,
yeah,
if you hire a salesperson that's not interested in either one of those, they may be the best person in the world, but they're not a salesperson.
yeah,
And it's and again, I don't really care how much construction or asphalt or paving experience this salesperson may have. It could be someone who gave me a great sales and or customer experience at a restaurant.
mm,
Uh, who was waiting on my table, or helping me out at Lowe's, or any other, uh, maybe at the phone store, wherever I'm getting customer experience, and I'm expecting some level of customer service. Like, you can find people anywhere, and it's just It's just finding people that you can get to buy in to kind of what you're selling and who you are, and get them to become a part of your team. I mean,
Yeah.
the best salespeople I've ever had in my career did not come from this industry, but you can
Yeah.
teach them pretty quick. You can put them out on job sites for 2 or 3 months and kind of coach them along, and you pay for, I don't know, 8 to 12 weeks of training, and get them as much information and knowledge and education as you can as quickly as possible, and you set them loose, and they're going to stumble, they're going to make mistakes. It may be a year or two before they absolutely and totally really start getting their arms around our industry and what we do and how we do it, but by God, if they're motivated by being responsive and delivering an amazing consumer experience and making a lot of money, they're probably going to work out.
Yeah, it's as far as the sales aspect and making money and that being, potentially offensive, it is the cog in your business machine that is designed to do that. And
It has
to
to,
be a
yeah,
great person. And something that I've heard contractors say before is if, they guarantee these people or a person a percentage or something that they may end up making more than I do this year. Something to that effect,
awesome.
or I can't have them making that much money. Any kind of thoughts about that? Because I've heard it definitely more than once, and it just
Check your ego at the door if you're worried about that. I mean, there's been plenty of years that sales guys of mine have drawn more money than I have out of the company, and that's awesome. That
yeah,
because that's helping the whole team. And that's the thing. Like it's not about um, if the owner's the one making the most. Like it doesn't matter who's making the most money. Are we going where we said we're wanting to go as a business? Are we serving our consumers in a manner that we say we're going to serve our consumers? And if we're all making some good money along the way and able to grow and invest in our people and invest in new equipment and grow the brand and our awareness within the community, then that's what it looks like. Everybody's got a role. Everybody's pay is not the same. Everybody's job is not the same. Um, Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan were both great basketball players, but Scottie didn't make a tenth of what Jordan made over his career. It just, it is what it is. But they won a bunch of rings together.
yeah.
I didn't hear Scottie crying about shit.
Scotty cried about a lot,
No.
but the point is well received. Everyone on that team did it together, and when you kind of look back at that team, it's when Jordan accepted in his third or fourth year that it was a team game. When he
Yeah.
accepted Phil Jackson's triangle offense, that was when he really started to succeed more, and he didn't lose any of his defensive titles, his scoring titles, or anything.
Yeah.
So it's really enjoy. I love the sports aspect of it. In fact, there was a football game this past weekend where the Broncos were playing the Chiefs. The Broncos were up 16-14, and the coaching staff. This article dives into it. The coaching staff uh, was talking to the team or to the other coaches and said, should we just go ahead and let them score so we give Mahomes more time to get the ball back because Denver was inside of the 50 and
Yeah.
close to football range, and the players said, "Hell no, we're going to go block the kick."
Yeah.
You look at the stats, and then that's the culture, and then they compare it. I forget. I guess it's not surprising. I forget who they were comparing them to, but another team who just completely the commentary was about during the game and after the game was just nothing of that kind of culture. And so I think there's just something to be said that whether you were talking about hiring a rake guy or a salesperson or customer service, that outer membrane is culture, the thing that you go back to most. So perhaps more than anything, as far as looking at data or anything we've kind of come back to as far as making those decisions, is making the financial decisions, the hiring decisions, the operational decisions. Is it part of your culture that you want to establish and you want to go work for every day? Because I think perhaps that more than anything talks to the longevity and that brand that really propels any business into something more than just a business in a community and something that is wanting to be talked about by the people who receive the service. So Is there any kind of anything you have on that last culture thought or about kind of the sales process? Any last kind of thoughts for the people here about what we talked about today, Kev?
Yeah, I mean, I said it, 6, 7 years ago when we developed the operations mentorship program. That the biggest piece of that whole thing was culture is king. I mean,
Yeah,
we can talk about all the other things that it takes to be successful with your operations and running a business and on it. And look, all of that stuff is vitally important. But at the end of the day, culture is king. And yeah, you're right. Scotty did cry about a bunch of shit. But to my
he
point,
didn't play. He
he
said
wasn't crying about the rings he got to put on his feet. He wasn't
yeah,
crying
yeah,
about being part of a championship team. So and that's, I guess that's my point. Like
absolutely.
it takes everybody, and it culture. Yes, they had Jordan, but culture and Phil Jackson's philosophy and his ability to be a great leader is what got them the 6 rings. I mean, that's,
Absolutely.
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And he put all the pieces together and got them to operate together,
yeah,
egos aside, and they became a team, and they became a dynasty. And that's very much what it looks like in business. So,
yep,
um, yeah.
yep. I can always fall back anytime I need a pep or I'm feeling low on energy or motivation or anything like that. I can pretty much find some kind of story within sports, a documentary or something that I can put on that at least gets me on that fired up and on that mode, because there's just something about that team aspect to accomplish a goal. And obviously, as you're putting it, placed into culture, it can really work some magic. And it's kind of that kind of stuff while we enjoy what we do, while why we host a podcast in our time to just kind of talk about this stuff, because it's such a cool, powerful thing that uh we get to do, especially as Americans, the freedom to own, operate, start a business. And man, doesn't get
Well,
much better than that.
no, and just kind of the final point to that, and or at least a final point on that is, culture always starts at the top, man. It starts with the leader. And um, I know that more today than I have known in my entire career, because as I reflect back on my time as owning my prior company, the years or the time periods, the seasons where we had our best results and we had a really good culture. It was when I was at the top of my game, and doing, and I was disciplined, and I was doing the things I needed to do on a day in and day out basis. And a lot of times it was just by my actions, just by how I was showing up, or not. So it's and that's when you start talking about getting your people to buy in and creating a good culture. Like, you got to take a big look in the mirror and say, hey, am I ready as the leader to say we're going to have a good culture? Because it all starts with me and how I act and how I treat people and how I lead. So
Kevin, you just make me want to cry sometimes. That is why I named that's why I named my company Mirror Marketing. Is
yeah.
because I like working with business owners who are willing to take that accountability to look at themselves and say it starts with me. Uh, I can't thank you enough, Kev. I'm already excited for the next episode. We'll keep this thing going. If you have any questions for Kevin, reach out at Pave It Forward LLC or at Pave It Forward on YouTube and Instagram. You can reach me at Mirror Marketing or Phil at mirrormvp.com. I'd be more than happy to talk to you probably too much about data. But as far as if you have any general questions, I'd be happy to embrace your questions at any level. And of course, Kevin is always available at Pave It Forward. So please reach out to him. Until then, Kevin, thank you so much for your time. And thanks everyone for listening. And we'll see you on the next